Quadratic equations. In this section, you will learn: first, solve quadratic equations by factoring. For an explanation of how to solve quadratic equations by factoring, please check out the previous video link. 2. Solve quadratic equations by square root property. 3. Solve quadratic equations by completing the square. 4. Solve quadratic equations by using the quadratic formula. Using the square root property. When there is no linear term in the equation, another method of solving a quadratic equation is by using the square root property, in which we isolate the x squared term and take the square root of the number on the other side of the equal sign. Keep in mind that sometimes we may have to manipulate the equation to isolate the x squared term so that the square root property can be used. Please stay with us until the end of the video because we are going to walk through these steps together. The square root property. With x squared term isolated, the square root property states that if x squared equals k, then x equals plus or minus the square root of k, where k is a non-zero real number. X squared equals 8. X equals plus or minus 2 square root of 2. Completing the square. Not all quadratic equations can be factored or can be solved in their original form using the square root property. In these cases, we may use a method for solving a quadratic equation known as completing the square. Using this method, we add or subtract terms to both sides of the equation until we have a perfect square trinomial on one side of the equal sign. We then apply the square root property. To complete the square, the leading coefficient a must equal 1. If it does not, then divide the entire equation by a. Then we can use the following procedures to solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. We will use the example x squared plus 4x plus 1 equals 0 to illustrate each step. First, given a quadratic equation that cannot be factored and with a equals 1, first add or subtract the constant term to the right side of the equal sign. X squared plus 4x equals negative 1. 2. Multiply the b term by 1/2 and square it. 1/2 times 4 equals 2. 2 squared equals 4. 3. Add 1/2 b squared to both sides of the equal sign and simplify the right side. We have x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals negative 1 plus 4. X squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 3. 4. The left side of the equation can now be factored as a perfect square. X squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 3. X plus 2 squared equals 3. 5. Use the square root property and solve. The square root of the quantity x plus 2 squared equals plus or minus the square root of 3. X plus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 3. X plus negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 3. Number 6. The solutions are x equals negative 2 plus the square root of 3. X equals negative 2 minus the square root of 3. Using the quadratic formula. The fourth method of solving a quadratic equation is by using the quadratic formula, a formula that will solve all quadratic equations. Although the quadratic formula works on any quadratic equation in standard form, it is easier to make errors in substituting the values into the formula. Pay close attention when substituting and use parentheses when inserting a negative number. We can derive the quadratic formula by completing the square. We will assume that the leading coefficient is positive. If it is negative, we can multiply the equation by -1 and obtain a positive a. Given ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a is not equal to 0, we will complete the square as follows. First, move the consistent term to the right side of the equal sign. Ax squared plus bx equals -c. Number 2, as we want the leading coefficient to equal 1, divide through by a. X squared plus b over a times x equals -c over a. Number 3, then find 1/2 of the middle term and add 1/2 b over a squared, which equals b squared over 4a squared to both sides of the equal sign. X squared plus b over a times x plus b squared over 4a squared equals b squared over 4a squared minus c over a. Number 4. Next, write the left side as a perfect square. Find the common denominator of the right side and write it as a single fraction. The quantity x plus b over 2a squared equals the quantity b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. Number 5. Now use the square root property, which gives x plus b over 2a equals plus or minus the square root of the quantity b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. X plus b over 2a equals plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Number 6. Finally, add -b over 2a to both sides of the equation and combine the terms of the right side. Thus, x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, where a, b, and c are real numbers and a is not equal to 0. Thanks for watching. Please stay tuned for my next video. I want to teach you some new tricks and techniques.